but thank you for the reminder. Okay. So as I just said, we're going to be entering a very different landscape, I think, that most Western yogis and yoginis are accustomed to. Very different theological landscape than the sort of what I would call neo-Vedantic one that came over strongly in the 60s and before that, but, you know, sort of is what you find in our East-West bookstores. Let's see how it goes. So we'll start with our invocation. Request our teachers to dhimahi, to inspire our minds, even though we're not really qualified. We're not pure. We're just on the path. We struggle with our vrittis and our kleshas and our anarthas. But still, I always take, whenever I feel unqualified to teach, I always take shelter of Shri Krishna's parting words in the Gita, right before the very end of everything. And he says, in chapter 18, verse 68, he who shall teach this supreme secret, and that is sarva dharma parityagya. This is his last instruction in the Gita. Surrender everything to me. Don't worry about anything. Even your dharma, even surrender your dharma. After spending 18 chapters telling Arjuna to do his dharma, obviously in a yogic way, without attachment to the fruit. At the end of it all, grand finale, what does he do? 1866. Sarva dharma parityagya, mam ekam sharanam braja. Just surrender to me. Give up all dharma. And then the next verse he says, and then right after that he says, and he who shall teach the supreme secret of surrendering completely to Bhagavan. We have a very mild reflection of that in Patanjali's Ishvara Pranidhana. Same thing, just very underdeveloped compared to the text we're reading now. He who shall teach the supreme secret to my worshippers, to my bhaktas, perform the highest devotion to me. So Krishna says to share these teachings, is that Krishna says, you read for yourselves, 1868, 69, read it when you get home. Having performed the highest bhakti to me, shall come to me without doubt. And he who shall just study this sacred dialogue of ours, by him I shall have been worshipped with the wisdom sacrifice. But anyway, 1869 is the verse that I cling to whenever I feel that I'm so far away from the standards that our great acharyas and rishis have set, so struggling in basic kleshas. I take comfort in that verse, that just by trying to share, to read these texts together, according to Krishna's 1869, do with it what you will, but read it. He says there's no dearer service than that. So what do you think, Swami Premananda? Can we take shelter of that verse? Do you think we can place our refuge in that verse?
Absolutely, no question.
Thank you. Om Ajnana Timirandasya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena. To the one who opened my eyes with the mascara of knowledge, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my Namaha to that Guru who gave me the knowledge. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. One has one Diksha Guru, except in the case when the Diksha Guru falls. Then one can take another Diksha Guru in the same lineage. But in terms of strict lineage protocols, you may have many Shiksha Gurus. Shiksha means teaching. But only one Diksha, only one that gives you the mantra into the initiation, into the lineage. So unless there are obviously a few rules a few conditions whereby that rule can be adjusted if the guru falls down, which happened to me. I mean, my first guru turned out to be a well, I'll save you the rather unpleasant story. So then I reconnected to another branch of the same Vrindavan, 16th century Vrindavan tradition, which is the tradition of Rupas. But other than those kinds of circumstances, the Diksha Guru, according to the protocol, according to standard lineage, I mean, we in the West, we do our own crazy hippy dippy thing. But in standard lineage protocol, you have one Diksha Guru, that's it. But Shiksha can be many. We're all Shiksha Gurus in our own way. You are as well. So my first Shiksha Guru was Bhaktivedanta Swami, and that's an invocation to him of the Krishna movement. I never met him, but I think I told you his books were the books that opened up the the whole possibility of a robust and a genuine and a rich, theologically rich spiritual tradition. Akandamandalakaram yena vyaptam characharam tat padam darshitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I've already translated that for you before. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanandasya Dvaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. An invocation to Chaitanya, who is the guru of Rūpa, whose book we are reading, that Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu. We're spending the whole of our Bhakti Yoga course this semester on reading the hagiography, the biography of Chaitanya. And I read it 10 years ago, but I'm just really relishing it, because here we see what the bar is for a bhakta. Krishna stories, Shiva stories, they tell us what Bhagavan looks like, why, they give us a sense of how a bhakta can become attracted to a form of Bhagavan in the Indian traditions. Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu explains the processes, and today we're going to look at the bhavs, the states. But the Caitanya Charitamrita gives us an actual example, not a sort of ancient legendary one that we find in the Puranas, but historically grounded, real, 16th century, no question about it. The life of what probably the greatest, by anyone's standard. Of course, his followers consider him an incarnation of Krishna, but even if you didn't accept that, there's no question that he attained the highest states of bhakti. It's just incomparable. I've never seen anything like that in any other literature. So that's the Caitanya Charitamrita. That's an invocation to Sri Chaitanya. If you want to check out some of those leelas, you can go on the website and we're still ongoing. There'll be we have another month or two on the course. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu, Jagatpate, Gopesha, Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe, Vrindavaneshwari, Rishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hare Priya. Apavitra Pavitro Va, Sarvavastha Gato Viva. Yasmaret Pundarika Ksham, Sa Bhayabhyantara Shuchihi. Whether you're pure or impure, whatever state we find ourselves in, it doesn't matter. If we surrender to the Lord with the lotus eyes, there's an Ishvara for everybody. If you're a ghost, if you're a spirit, if you're a hobgoblin, then Shiva's got some. See, Shiva's very merciful. Yes, he doesn't see hobgoblins and ghosts, and he sees Atman. He gives shelter to everybody. So whatever state we find ourselves in, if we remember the Lord with the lotus eyes, that we plug in whoever is your beloved Ishvara, Ishta Devata, then we become pure inside and outside, my friends. This is the path of bhakti. Beautiful, beautiful verse. And my Ishta Devatas, well, they're in the painting up there on the wall, Krishna Balaram. But in the beginning of this book, you will notice right there, Sri Krishna Balaram Shri Krishna Balarama Bhyam Namaha. Bhyam is just a dual ending because there's two of them. If it was one, it would be Balaramaya, Krishnaya. But because there's two, there's a dual ending, different ending. Shri Shri Krishna Balarama Bhyam Namaha. And those are deities in Vrindavan, India. The first deities I ever saw. 1978. Just stumbled in there. Didn't even know what I was doing. The weird hybrid characters, sort of halfway, sort of a cross between a hippie and a sadhu. Didn't know what I was doing. Okay, my friends, on we go with Rāgānugā. Okay, so now Rāgānugā. All right, so Vedic Bhakti, we had all the 64 processes, all supported by verses from all over the place, but clearly the Bhagavatam was prioritized in illustrating these verses, but these are very, very erudite. Rūpa and this category of Indian intellectual. There are a few like this in the history of Indian intellectuality. Not just a few, many. It just breathtakingly erudite and well-read. Shankara, Rāmānuja, Madhva, you know, the Shaiva traditions of Abhinavagupta. You have these kind of just amazing figureheads of learning. Colossi, like the colossi of the ancient world. They're just astound us. And in the West, you have, your Augustine and Aquinas. We have parallels. So Rūpa is one of those. So he's been illustrating these from all over the place, all of different verses. Now we move on to Rāgānugā, which means it follows literally raga. You know the word from Patanjali, and lo Patanjali, it's a klesha. It's a klesha when it's based on avidya. Remember, the avidya is the kshetra musharesham. The avidya is the field of the others. Supta, prasupta, that verse. If it's based on avidya, it's a klesha. What if it's based on prema? What if it's based on love of God? Totally different usage of emotionality, my friends. So this is Rāgānugā, following raga, not the raga that Patanjali is talking about. Raga for Krishna. Now we're going to have to we're going to have to work through some stuff here, because there's a lot of this theology, and the infrastructure of the theology is going to be unfamiliar to many of you. Let's just do it. And we don't have a lot left. Prema is only a few pages, Bhava is only a few pages. We'll have probably 2 more sessions. If we really wanted to, we could do it in this and another one, but I'm not rushing. So I'm learning. I'm going deeper every time. It's like asana, you go deeper, deeper, deeper. No such thing as knowing these texts any more than there is knowing an asana. You just go deeper, ever more. Not static. So devotion is called Rāgānugā. Remember, this whole chapter is sadhana, okay? It's sadhana bhakti. So there's Vaidhi sadhana and there's Rāgānugā sadhana, practices. Now, to understand Rāgānugā, we have to understand Rāgatmika. So devotion is called Rāgānugā when it imitates the Rāgatmika bhakti that shines forth clearly in the residence of Vraj. Vraj is Vrindavan, and that where Krishna spent his childhood, part of his time on earth, before he goes off and becomes the big Krishna of the Mahabharata and Dwarka and the big royal, and performs his duty that he says performs his mission of, a lot of demons had been born and blah, 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 blah. And he has to sort of arrange the war. There's a subtext of the whole war, that the demons and the gods in the celestial realms, they're perennially always battling. Demons were losing. So they all came and took shelter on earth and hid out on earth and took birth as great kings. So they were demoniac and they were causing a complete and utter ruckus and, upheaval of civic order. So Brahma goes to the ocean of milk, prays to Vishnu to incarnate. So that's the background story of the Mahabharata. So, that Krishna is not the Krishna of any interest to the bhaktas. So the bhaktas are interested in the Krishna of Vraj. He's not doing any mission. He's not going out reasserting the harmony of the world. He's just exchanging in love. He's going, So like Caitanya, Krishna's incarnation has two purposes, an internal and external one. Bhagavata tells us. The external one is to do what he says in the Gita, right? Paritranaya sadhunam dharma sanstapanartaya. I come to establish a dharma. I protect the devotees. I kill the demons. I come age after age. Sambhavami yuge yuge. That was chapter 4 in the Gita, famous verse. External reason. But the internal reason is to give us a window into what is the liberated state for those who reject moksha and seek an eternal relationship with an eternal Bhagavan. What does that relationship look like? And where does it take place? So that's, if we put that as the guiding issue, we'll understand the next section. Okay, it takes place in Brahman, but in a personalist realm made of realms with personalities. All the devotees have beautiful Satchidananda forms made of pure consciousness. There's trees, there's everything there is. This world is a reflection of that, like Plato said, with his shadows on the cave. He was onto something. That's the personalist realm. So that where the personalists who don't want moksha, they don't want to be Svarupa Vastanam. That's the impersonal aspect of Brahman. Both are there. Make your choice, my friends. Take your choice. So Vraj is that personalist realm, not Maya. So devotion is called Ragatma when it imitates the Ragatmika bhakti that shines forth clearly in the resonance of Raj. Ragatmika means their very nature, it's spontaneous. You don't have to follow anything. It's just your very being. Your entire being is focused on Bhagavan. So your Atmika is Raga. Your entire Atmika, your entire nature is not quite the same sense as Atman in the Vedanta sense. Atmika can also mean the nature of something. Of course, in the Vedanta sense, it means the deep level, ultimate nature of something. So that's how we're familiar with the term Atman. But actually, technically, Atman in Sanskrit just means the nature of something. So you can use it in mundane ways. You can say something has the nature of, earth or nature of fire, if it's made of that. So the very nature of the residence of Raj, where Krishna, if you haven't read the story of Krishna, please read it, my friends. Email me, I'll send you some passages. I'll send you whatever I have. I'll send you some of the choice, delicious chapters. Those who take birth when Krishna incarnates, they're not normal people. They're not just randomly taking birth. There are different categories of residents of Raj. Some of them come down with Krishna from the divine realm. There is eternal associates. They never leave him. They come down with him. Whatever the case may be, he's not going to discuss that now. We'll discuss it in later chapters. But Ragatmika Bhakti, they have it. Spontaneous. They don't have to follow anything. So Rāgānugā is when it's still sadhana. You have we'll see, I'm just giving you a little map. You have desire, you have an attraction, and you mold it on one of the residents of Raj. You read the stories of Krishna, of course, in the old days you'd hear them, and you become attracted to a particular flavor of loving God. Maybe as a gopi, you're fascinated by the gopi stories, and you just keep asking questions, but what do they do this, and why, and what were they thinking here, and what happened there? And there's a massive body of literature, not just the 5 chapters of the Bhagavatam on the gopis. There's tons of supplementary literature. That's one bhav, type of love. And then there's, Yashoda, who her whole love is, she loves Krishna as her baby, as a child. She doesn't know he's God. Her whole mood is maternal, protective, nourishing, nurturing, of a mother. So that's, and the Sakya Bhav, friendship, where Krishna just plays as equals with his little friends, and they go out and they wrestle and they chase the monkeys and they swim in the rivers and they herd their little calves. The gopas are responsible for the calves. So you become fascinated with one of these types of residents, one of these clusters of devotees that have these different bhavs. And Rāgānugā is when you start to imitate it just by sheer attraction, right? We do that all the time. We imitate, right? People imitate their movie stars, or they imitate, that's what fashion is. That's what anything is. It catches on, we imitate. So it's part of human nature. So in this here, we're imitating the already accomplished, eternally accomplished lovers of God. So Rāgānugā is when, hopefully this will become clearer as we proceed, right? For now, Rāgānugā, the formal definition of Rāgānugā Bhakti is, right, let's remember what it was for Vaidhi. Let's go back to see what was the definition for Vaidhi Bhakti was. We'll read it out here. We won't bother going back up, but Sadhana Bhakti, great big long section. It is defined Vaidhi. Devotion is called Vaidhi when it manifests from the instruction of scripture and not from raga. That's the definition, verse 6. Okay, let's take a moment, go there. Great, because we're now contrasting two different kinds of sadhana. So verse 6 is right here, Vaidhi. Devotion is called bhakti, it's called Vaidhi. Vaidhi means rule. Vidhi is a rule, a regulation. So it's regulated, you follow. It manifests from the instruction of scripture. You say, okay, I want to be a devotee. I'm suffering in the world. And I like this idea. I believe in God as a distinct being. It doesn't make sense to me to think that there's, that I'm God. That doesn't make any sense at all. Whatever the reason it might be, you become attracted to God. But how do you reach God? Well, you start off with nowhere. So you got to follow something. So you follow the instruction of scripture. You don't have a passion yet. You haven't developed that love. It's not spontaneously. So it's very clear. And not from the attainment of raga. Passion means raga. So Vaidhi is following scriptures. That's what most of us are doing. And not from raga. Right now, we're going to the second kind of bhakti, which is from raga. And of course, I lost my place. Second, prema, bhava. We are on Rāgānugā, which is on page
77.
77. Thank you so much, Eleonora. All right. So, okay, do you see the distinction? Now, right? Meaning we just spent 3 sessions on the 64. This is short. This is only 10 pages. So now he's done all that, described Vaidhi. Now Rāgānugā, right? We just read that Rāgānugā, that Vaidhi is not Rāgānugā. So Vaidhi is following the injunction. So we can infer right away that Rāgānugā is not going to be based on injunctions. It's going to be spontaneous, but we'll find that out. Formal definition, it imitates the Rāgātmika Bhakti that shines forth clearly in the residence of Raj. We're imitating, those are our role models. All right. So now that means we've got to define Rāgātmika, because if Rāgānugā imitates Rāgātmika, well, what's Rāgātmika then? So Rāgātmika is Rāgātmika, let me pronounce it properly, is first described in order to distinguish it from Rāgānugā, right? Rāgānugā follows Rāgātmika. So what is this Rāgātmika? Some of this, the next page is going to be, took me a while to sort it all out. Raga is the state of being naturally and completely absorbed in the beloved. Okay, you don't need to follow, the scriptures. It just happens naturally. You're naturally always thinking of God. You're naturally engaging in some of those 64 processes, singing, thinking about, meditating on, doing your puja. It just comes naturally, not because it's enjoined in injunctions. That form of devotion that consists of such passion is here declared to be Rāgātmika. All right, it's spontaneous, it's complete, and it's 100%. Rāgānugā is not 100%, but you're following it. You want it to be 100%, so you're imitating the Rāgātmikas. That maybe imitating is not a good word there. It means to follow. You're molding yourself on. They're your role models. You're molding themselves. Imitation. You got to be careful when you translate Sanskrit, because imitation doesn't necessarily have good connotations. So the Rāgātmikas. Now, there are 2 types, Rāgātmika Bhakti. Amorous, Kama Rupa, that's only the gopis. And relational, Sambandha. Like Krishna's father, Krishna's friends, you have a relation. The amorous is also relational, but he's going to separate it out, because this tradition really prioritizes the gopis as the highest yogis ever, of any category of yogi, and the highest attainable state of human perfection. So the gopis, so even though in a sense it's all relational, Rupa's making this division because he wants to sort of identify the gopis as just super excellent and unparalleled. And of course, he's going to quote the scripture to give some support to this. Okay, the Rāgānugā, right? So now, here's a strange thing. Demons can be Rāgānugā. Kamsa, who had tried to kill Krishna, if you know the story, he killed the first six siblings of Krishna, because he'd heard a prophecy that the eighth child of his sister, that means his own nephew, the eighth child would kill him. And of course, it had happened three lifetimes in a row. This has happened. This is the third lifetime. So he was utterly, 3 lifetimes. He'd been killed by Vishnu. 2 lifetimes. This is the third. Utterly absorbed. So he was in samadhi. What's samadhi? Your mind is absorbed. Patanjali samadhi, it's nirodha, not in bhakti. Bhakti samadhi is 100%, not 99. So he was a demon. From morning to night, he could think of nothing but Krishna, nothing but Krishna. Of course, that's not bhakti, but it is samadhi. It is mental fixity. So, having absorbed their minds, he's going to give examples of different sorts of people, different ways you can absorb your mind in the Lord. Through devotion, okay, motivated by such emotions. I'm not sure how, this is a bit of a question for me, for reasons I don't want to get into. How do you absorb your mind in the Lord? Amorous love, like the gopis. Hatred. Kamsa, you can be totally and utterly obsessed with someone in hatred, or in fear and affection, and having thereby destroyed their sins. Even the demons who are thinking of God in hatred, they're thinking of God, my friends. Wherever there is God, there can only be purity. So all of their kleshas got destroyed, even though they're demons. All the demons get liberated. They all get awarded bhakti. All the demons Krishna kills all get liberated. Some merge into his body. Some, we'll find out about where they end up. So it doesn't matter what the motive is, right? Motivated by any kind of emotion. And he just gives an example, such as love. Okay, that's what we want. But how about hatred, fear, affection, and having thereby destroyed their sins? How do they destroy their sins? Because their minds are absorbed in Bhagavan, and there can be no impurity. If you're where there is the sun, there is no darkness. It doesn't matter what you think the sun is or isn't. It has its power. It has its property of light. You can't change it, and it illuminates. So the property of Bhagavan is all pure. Everything is pure. Everything comes in contact with Bhagavan becomes pure. So the minds became pure of the demons. It's a beautiful thing about bhakti. So even the huge demons that get killed by Vishnu all attain liberation of one sort or another. Many have reached the highest end. Right, now the gopis have done it through love. Kamsa, I just told you about the wicked uncle, through fear. Shishupala and other kings who hated him. Shishupala hated. These are all stories from Krishna's, the 10th book of the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata. Shishupala, great king, hated ally of Kamsa, and he hated Krishna. The Vrishnis, through a relationship, the Vrishnis are, Krishna's dynasty. The Pandavas are the immediate dynasty. The Vrishnis is the larger, broader dynasty. The Pandavas are just, Arjuna and Yudhisthira, the sons of Pandu. So they're just a 2-generation dynasty, but the Vrishni is a larger dynasty within which the Pandavas find themselves. Through affection, Narad, through devotion, right? Almighty One, remember this is Shuka speaking to the king. The naked sage Shuka, remember we'd had his story, and the king Parikshit 7 days to fast. Right, so all of them have fixed their mind on God in different ways, but they've all fixed their minds in God. Now, fear and hatred are rejected. In other words, they're not bhakti because they're contrary to the favorable nature of this devotion. They still get liberated. They still get pure. We're going to find out that they attain these, pretty cool destinations, but it's not considered bhakti because fear and hatred, obviously, is contrary to the favorable nature of this devotion. Rāgānugā, he's talking about, Rāgātmika. Rāgātmika, it has to be favorable, has to involve love of God. So in a sense, they're also ragatmikas. Their very nature is this, maybe not raga for Krishna, but it comes under the title of raga. It's hatred of fear of Krishna, but nonetheless, their minds are absorbed in it. But he's saying, so Rupa's acknowledging that, but he says that's not what we want to talk about. We're not interested in that. We're interested in the favorable type of bhakti. All right, affection generally connotes friendship and thus belongs to Vaidhi bhakti. Hang on, we'll just spill over. On the other hand, if affection were understood to mean supreme love, it is not appropriate here in religious practice. I'm sorry, this is a little complicated. So he's saying friendship with God, if there is an awareness of God's majesty, then it goes under Vaidhi bhakti. Because if you know God's majesty, there's a bit of distance there. It's rule bound. There's protocol. Just like with, any kind of, if you're in the presence of a king or a powerful person or the president, there's a certain fear, distance, and a certain protocol. So even if it's friendly, if it's benevolent and all of that, but that would belong to Vaidhi, he's saying. So generally affection for God comes under Vaidhi. But on the other hand, if it's intense affection, all the way up to love, then it doesn't belong here because this is practice. And if it's intense affection, love, then it's beyond all rules and regulations. So it doesn't belong in this particular chapter on sadhana. I know this sounds rather complicated, but hang in there. It gets better. This is just a little bit of a tricky bit, this page. Okay. So therefore, he wants to talk about Rāgānugā, but first he has to talk about Ragatmika. Talking about Ragatmikas, those who are obsessed, completely absorbed, some in a positive way, like the gopis, other in a negative way. So he gets rid of those and says, okay, they're ragatmikas, but we reject them because we can't really call that bhakti. Is that okay? Right. Now he's got to deal with the fact that, so the next 5 or 6 verses are going to deal with what happens to Krishna's enemies if they're ragatmikas. How can we say they attain the same state as the great devotees? So he says, the statement that the goal, and he's talking about some statement, I don't know if we quoted it, but there's another statement. Yes, here it is. Many have reached the highest end. Look, having absorbed their minds in the Lord through devotion, I'm not sure that's quite the right word there, motivated by such emotions as love, hatred, fear, and affection, and therefore, and having thereby destroyed their sins, right? Because as we said, the mind is absorbed in God. Many have reached the highest end. Now everyone's going to say, wait a minute, that doesn't seem fair. The gopis and the evil uncle attain the highest same ends. So Rupa now says, wait a minute. The statement he just made up there, that the goal is the same for both Krishna's enemies and his friends, not quite the same. Means that Brahman resembles Krishna as the sun ray resembles the sun. They don't attain Krishna's personal realm of Vraj, but they can attain their Atman, they can merge into Brahman, they can attain the destination of the impersonalists. So in one sense, the sun and the sunlight are the same. So yeah, it's not wrong to say that if you attain the sunlight or you attain the sun, you've attained the same thing. On the other hand, there is a difference. So now he needs to qualify that. The enemies of Hari, but remember, they've absorbed their mind intensely. That is the characteristic of samadhi in bhakti. You absorb your mind in Bhagavan 24 hours. Come say, there's a beautiful verse. When he was sitting, when he was walking, when he was eating, when he was, it has a whole list of daily activities. He could do nothing other than think of Krishna and hatred and fear, because he knew that the eighth son, the prophecy had said the eighth son of Vishnu is going to kill you. But he was in total samadhi. So what happens to them then? The enemies of Hari are generally absorbed only in Brahman. In Vaishnava theology, the destination of the impersonalists is like the sunlight to the sun. The sunlight is all-pervading, it's impersonal, it's luminous, has the qualities of the sun, but to a lesser extent. So the sunlight is luminous and hot, but not as much, nowhere near the same luminosity and heat as the sun itself. So therefore, the destination of those who seek an impersonal end, they seek to become God, it's depending on how you phrase that, according to this tradition, they're merging them. In other words, their Atman loses its individuality and it sort of merges into the infinite Brahman. But that Brahman is nothing other than the effulgence of God's body, of God's form, of God's being. But it's still Satchit Ananda, just like those that seek that say it is. It is Satchit Ananda. It's blissful. It's eternal. It's free of suffering. But it's impersonal. There's no more personality. There's no individuality of the Atman. The Atman loses any sense of individuality. It has no subtle body, no psychic body, no body at all. And it's just in an eternal state, static, no action at all, because it's changeless. A static, impersonal, all-pervading state of pure bliss and consciousness. Exactly what the, say, Advaita traditions and other such traditions, Sankhya, claim for it. But the Vaishnavas say, that's just the effulgence of the divine realm. And to get to those who actually seek a relationship with Bhagavan, the personalists who understand God as a person, they're awarded spiritual bodies. Just like when they come to Prakriti, you're awarded a Prakritic body to function in Prakriti. You can't function in Prakriti without a body. The Atman cannot function. Just like if you go into deep sea, you need to put on a special sea suit. If you go to space, you've got to put on a space suit. You can't function in these environments without a kind of a body that is suitable for that. So when the Atman comes to Prakriti, it is awarded a Prakritic body according to its karma, right? Dog, tree, whatever it is, that's karma. So similarly, the personalists in this realm who want to have a personal relationship with God, how are they going to do that? So they're awarded spiritual bodies, bodies made of Brahman, made of Satchit Ananda, but forms and qualities, and if karma determines our bodies in Prakriti, what determines our body in the divine realm of Goloka and Vaikuntha? The type of love you have for God. If you have maternal love, you need a body suitable to interact with God as a mother. So you have a mother body. If you want to have God as a little friend, equal, a playmate, then you have a little body of a little gopa, a cowherd boy, and so on. Okay, so those are the Ragatmikas we met in the residents of Braj that we met here, right? The Ragatmika Bhakti, the ones that Rupa is interested in. He's not interested in the demons who are Ragatmika. He mentions them just because he wants to be thorough, because he's a scholar, and then scholars have to leave no stone unturned. So he says, okay, there are other kinds of Ragatmikas. We're not interested in those, but they also are totally 100. They don't follow rules and regulations. Remember, that's a definition. Vaidhi, you're following rules and regulations, but Ragatmika is intense. Look, the state of naturally and completely absorbed in the beloved, in Krishna. Of course, for Kamsa, he wasn't the beloved, he was the hated. But what's the point? Naturally and completely, no rules or regulations, no one telling them, no sense of I have to, if I want to be a good bhakta, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to get up in the morning, do my japa, I have to do my puja now. None of that. Naturally and completely, not 99%, not 50%, not for half an hour in the morning, not for 3 hours in the evening, 100%. That's the Ragatmika. They're absorbed. They know nothing else. They don't follow any external injunctions, guide, nothing. It's their very nature. It's their Atmika. But some of them are demons. So being a thorough scholar, Rupa has to dispose of those, and he says, okay, fine, fair enough. They're also Ragatmikas, but fear and hatred are rejected. We're not going to talk about them because they're contrary to what we want to talk about, which is bhakti. Right. So now he before we move on, he has to then deal with, well, what happens to those demons then? They attain the impersonal Brahman. The enemies of Hari are generally absorbed only, notice the only. They haven't attained the highest truth. The sunlight is not the highest truth. The sun is higher than the sunlight because it's in one sense, they're coextensive, they coexist, they're co-partners, but which one is the cause of the which? The sunlight is derivative from the sun. So he says they're absorbed only in Brahman. Remember all the verses we had about moksha is rejected, moksha is rejected, moksha is rejected. Bhaktas don't want this. So Now, a few of them, though, so most of them get absorbed into Brahman, which is the goal of the jnana traditions. Jnana, the knowledge, those who seek the Atman, they're going to end up here. Bhaktas, frankly, the bhaktas feel compassion. They say, you know, that's fine. You're liberated. You're not suffering. You've attained a state of bliss, but you've missed out on a possibility of a relationship with something far more blissful and wonderful than your own little Atman. Even if your Atman becomes one with Brahman and becomes infinite and loses its individuality, still it's nothing compared to Bhagavan, who is the source of the effulgence of Brahman. But a few of these demons catch a glimpse of the similarity of form with the Lord. Remember the 5 kinds of mokshas? One of them is you get a similar form. So some of them make it a step beyond that, Brahman, and they become immersed in the happiness of that state. They've attained happiness. So then he quotes the Brahmanda Purana. Beyond the darkness is the world of the Siddha Loka, all right, where the perfected ones, the Jnana tradition, and the demons killed by Hari, notice that they attain the same goal as the Jnanis, not the Bhaktas, but the Jnanis, those seeking the Atman. They dwell immersed in the happiness of Brahman. You've heard so much about this. This is what you read about in Sankhya, in Nyaya, in Advaita Vedanta, in so many of these traditions. They're seeking the bliss of the self, right? So even the demons get that. Now, however, devotees dear to Krishna, right? Those who are ragatmikas, but out of love, who worship him by means of a passionate relationship. I'm not sure passionate is a good word here, because we think of passionate as like erotic or romantic passion. Raga means intense attraction of the mind. They can think of nothing else. So think of passion that way, to, strip it of its, of our modern way of thinking of it. It's raga, when the mind is absorbed, utterly consumed by something. That can be a good thing. Obviously, if it's love of God, it is. So, but be careful of not misassociating unhelpful meanings under the term passionate. So devotees dear to Krishna who worship him by means of passionate relationship of one type or another, right? As a mother, as a friend, as a gopi, the gopi, beloved cowherd girls who just adore Krishna. They're young, beautiful, sweet girls, and they just love Krishna with all their heart, mind, everything. They attain the nectar of his lotus feet. Now, personal, they get him personally. Their liberation is different. They don't even care about liberation. They attain the nectar of his lotus feet that consists of love, prema. That's going to be the next chapter 4, what that prema is. Okay, so those are the ragatmikas that Rāgānugā. Remember what Rāgānugā is? It's going to model itself on the ragatmikas, right? What is Rāgānugā? It imitates the Ragatmika Bhakti. That is, shines forth clearly. You read the stories of the 10th book of the Bhagavatam in Krishna's Leela's pastimes in Braj, you'll get a sense of that. So it follows Ragatmika. So now, which Ragatmikas he's talking about? Well, he's dismissed the ones he's not interested in, the demons, but he has a little comment about, well, yeah, that's okay. They also attain some kind of liberation. They don't get Braj. They don't get they don't get to associate with God personally, but they'll get these other types of liberation. There's loads of different types of liberation, my friends. Whoever came up with the idea there's only one? How skimpy would that be for the absolute, to have only one possible type of liberation? There may be infinite types of liberation. You want to be Shiva, Shiva, maybe Shiva. You want to be Svarupa Vastana, Svarupa Vastana. You want to have Nirvana, Pratitya Samutpada, you can attain that. And let them all, they're all true. Let them all be true. Okay. Now we're going to get to where we want to be. The ones, okay. So the ones who worship Krishna by means of a passionate relationship of one type or another, of the, mother or friend, they attain the nectar of his lotus feet that consists of love. They attain this love that is the goal of bhakti. That's going to be the goal of our study together in chapter 4, very short chapter. And as always, he gives a little verse from the Bhagavatam 10th book. The sages who practice yoga to control their breath, mind, and senses realize you by meditating on you in their hearts. This Ashtanga yoga doesn't have to be just Svarupa Vastanam. There are personalists yogis who do Ashtanga, but they meditate on you in their hearts. They're not seeking the Atman. They want Bhagavan, but they're using the Ashtanga method. Don't think Patanjali Svarupa Vastanam. That's a very common and a kind of normative, we might even say, goal of Ashtanga, but there are many Ashtangis pick up their Atman on the way. No one's doubting that, but they keep going. They want it. Atman is easy to pick it up. You can do that by your own willpower. You can't get Bhagavan by willpower. Only grace. So they try to get that grace by thinking about you constantly. The women realizing you, the women, the gopis and the queens of Dwarka, by fixing their minds on your arms that resemble the king of snakes, noting the sort of kind of, that maybe that doesn't sound like a compliment to us, but it did back then. In other words, muscular arms. We would say, what would we say? We would say something like, you're built or something. What would you say? Endowed. So in other words, it's a very sensual description because the women love Krishna sensually. They want him. They just think he's gorgeous. They want to touch him. They want to have a romantic relationship, an amorous relationship with him. So they think of him. So the king of snakes is a nice compliment back then. I'm not sure it will work nowadays. You could try it out on your boyfriend. Just say, oh, your arms are like the king of snakes. See how far that goes. Anyway, okay. We too realize you by viewing you in the same way they did. And that's Rāgānugā. When you view them in the same way the Rāgātmikas did. Thus, we all drink the nectar from your lotus feet. All right, now he's going to give an example of amorous bhakti. All right, so he's still on Rāgātmika bhakti. All right, because remember he said it's relational or here. Rāgātmika bhakti is two types. Number one, amorous, kama rupa. We know the word kama, but this is kama for Krishna. And relational, sambandha, that means having a relationship, whether it's a friend or a father, right? Two types. Now keep your eye on the ball. Still talking about Rāgātmika. Why are we talking about Rāgātmika? Because Rāgānugā follows it, imitates it. That's why it's sadhana. It's not spontaneous. Rāgātmika is spontaneous. So Rāgānugā, since it follows it, it's still a practice. And therefore it comes in the category of sadhana, but very high. It's gone beyond Vaidhi. It doesn't need rules and regulations, but it's still a practice. Okay, they might, do you see the difference? Vaidhi is just the rules and regulations. But when you actually start to get a raga, you haven't got the full raga yet, but you start to get to a place where your raga is natural. It doesn't depend on rules and regulations and pujas and whatever it might be. Then you start getting very interested in these residents of Vraj. You have it. They have love of God. So then you start to really become absorbed in thinking about them. Here it says imitates, you follow them. They become your role models. Right. So now, this amorous bhakti, right, is that type of Rāgātmika bhakti, which leads the thirst for erotic enjoyment to its perfect state. Why is it perfect? What does this mean? The perfect state of erotic enjoyment. What does that mean in bhakti? It is undertaken exclusively for the pleasure of Krishna. There's no sense of self-fulfillment. Normal sexual encounters, even in the highest sort, where you care about your partner, but you still care about your own pleasure. Pure love doesn't exist in the world of Prakriti. Some might be purer than others, but it's your own pleasure is involved there, not here. So the gopis have absolutely no sense whatsoever that they are hoping to get some erotic enjoyment for themselves. They want it for God, but that's their offering to God. Remember, you can offer anything to God, a flower, a leaf. So why can't you offer your love in an amorous, in an erotic way? Anything. So that's what the gopis are all about. And they're considered the highest bhaktas. It is perfectly accomplished. No self-interest. Got to be completely free of of Patanjali's kleshas. Patanjali's kind of raga, which is based on body-mind. Sukhanushayi. Remember the definition of raga in Patanjali. Sukhanushayi. You're seeking your own pleasure. You're seeking sukha. What is raga in Patanjali? Perfect. I'm glad this came to mind. Sukhanushayi. It's based on your sukha, on your happiness. You do raga because you do raga in the mundane raga, the avidya raga. What's avidya? I think I'm body mind. So the raga that comes from I think I'm body mind is sukhanusai. You do it because it gives pleasure to your body mind. And if you're a decent person, then you care about your partner and the rest of it. But your own body mind needs are central to your mundane raga, not here. No sense of personal getting gimme anything. The gopis just want to love Krishna and serve him erotically. It's very interesting, this theology. So it's perfectly accomplished. That's perfection. No self-interest, no kleshas, and brilliantly displayed in the gopis of Vraj. Their distinctive love, prema, they're ragatmikas. They already have the love. That's why the Rāgānugas want to follow them, because they got it. Attains a special sweetness, since it is the cause of various kind of amorous activities, right? Their love, is manifests in all kinds of wonderful, romantic, erotic liaisons with Krishna. And there's a whole mass of literature on this. So the wise have called it Kama, right? Nothing to do with our Kama Sutra. You read the Kama Sutra, it's all about how you get pleasure, different kinds of pleasure you can get, and different kinds of women in India, with the different, erotic paraphernalias, erotic setup for you. This is all God. Everything is. So bhakti is everything. You don't renounce anything. You just give everything to Bhagavan. That's how it's different from jnana. Jnana can be radically vairagya, radical vairagya. Bhakti, what are you vairagyaing? Everything belongs to God. Give it back to God. So he quotes the Tantra. And not clear what that Tantra is, but only the supreme love of the gopis is celebrated as amorous. Only they have that pure selflessness. Thus even Uddhava and other male friends of the Lord crave it. You can be in a male body. This love of God has got nothing to do with your temporary karmic body. So you can be in a male body, and like Rūpa he's a sannyasi, celibate. And yet this is his mood. He's in the mood of, he wants this kind of love of the Vraja Gopi. So your relationship with God, my friends, let's be clear about this, it's got nothing to do with your temporary karmic embodiment that'll last another 5 minutes or 10 years or 50 years. 10 minutes from the point of view of beginningless birth. So even Uddhava, Krishna's counselor, very sort of stoic, he's the messenger. He goes back to, Krishna sends him back to the gopis. When he leaves the Vrindavan, Krishna leaves, he sends Uddhava back, and Uddhava starts preaching to them. They tell him to get lost. They say, don't come here preaching your Vedanta to us. We want Krishna. Well, we don't want your Vedanta, your talk of Atman. Literally, he's just amazed. And he's the one that says the famous verse, the gopis are the highest embodied beings on earth. So in a culture where yoga is so male-dominated, you find a couple of ladies in the Upanishads, sure. Gargi, Maitreyi, but it's all male. Vedanta, all male. You can't even study Vedanta if you're female. Vedic ritual, male. All of the Shastris, male. It's changing now, of course, but, very recently. So in that kind of a culture, gopis, it's remarkable. In the Bhagavatam, the gopis are considered the highest of all yogis. So even Uddhava and other male friends crave what the gopis have, that amorous love. And then there's a story of immature love of Kubja. It's another story where she actually wants her own pleasure. She just fancies Krishna. And she just, and it's in when Krishna leaves Vrindavan. So once he leaves Vrindavan, everything changes. If you want the real love, the real bhakti of the Vraj bhakti is when Krishna's in Vrindavan. After that, then it's just majestic Krishna. And Krishna doesn't hide who he is. He manifests his majesty. In Vrindavan, he hides his majesty. You can't have love if there's majesty. My friends, are we clear about this? We need to understand this if we need to proceed further. You cannot have love if there's majesty. You can have respect, you can have affection, you can have appreciation, but you can't have love. You can't have intimate love. If majesty creates distance, almost fear, formality. So therefore, So therefore, Rupa's not going to talk about this, but we have to understand Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is a term that's used in the Vraj. Okay, the 10th book of the Bhagavatam is Krishna's life. 90 chapters. I've translated the whole thing for Penguin Classics, and I have a few chapters in the Bhakti Yoga book. But the whole thing, the whole story, and it spills into book 11. That whole story you can get, if you want the whole story, Penguin Classics. It costs $5 secondhand, or download it. There's loads. But by the way, well, I'll maybe say that another time. So the 30-something chapters of Vraj, Leela, and then he leaves, he goes to Mathura, he kills the evil king that imprisoned his parents, frees his parents, and then he goes around and kills all the demons, frees, one captured 16,000 princesses and was just holding them in dungeons, so he kills them and free, all these kind of stories, which are pretty cool, but of no interest of bhaktas. They're not the Krishna of devotion. They're the Krishna of awe and majesty. Now, the Krishna of love is Vraj, 30-something chapters. The term Yogamaya is central to that, because Yogamaya means Krishna hides his majesty. He covers it so that nobody knows he's God, so that his mother can spank him, chase him with a stick when he broke the butter pot. His little Gopa friends can wrestle, and they really believe that if they wrestle Krishna, they've got a 50% chance of winning that wrestling. They're convinced of it. The bhavs have their own flavors. The bhav of the friend is equality. You are convinced Krishna's equal to you. If you have little competitions, running races, tag races, you think you have as much chance to win as God. That's Yogamaya. Yogamaya covers Krishna, so he can also join in the fun, and it covers the Vraj residents, as Rupa puts it, those who are born in that little cow-herding community. So that no one knows Krishna's God. He does the most amazing things, like lift up a mountain on his little finger. Just because of Yogamaya, they just think, oh, that's Krishna being cool. It's Krishna again. What does he do this time? Oh, he picked up the mountain on his pinky. Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. No big deal. Well, yesterday he killed this huge snake demon. Oh, yeah, all right. So the characteristic of friendship is equality. The characteristic of maternal love is that the mothers, and it's not just Krishna's actual mother, but all the elders in this village have a maternal, of that bhav, the eternal bhav, the maternal love of Krishna. The characteristic of that is protection. They're convinced Krishna needs our protection. We need to make sure his lunch bag is packed. We need to make sure that, we chant protective mantras so that, nothing bad happens to him. Protection. Always fretting when he's away herding the calves. The mother's always fretting. Oh, I hope he doesn't step on any pebbles that hurt his feet. Oh, I hope, just the mother. That's the defining feature of maternal bhav, according to the Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu, is this protection, which involves, worry of a transcendental sort. And then the gopis, the lovers, the defining feature is just Krishna is a gorgeous male, period. He's just drop dead gorgeous. He's got snake-like arms. And what else? He's got snake-like arms. You'll get used to these are kind of poetic conventions. Like Shakespeare might say, lips as red as roses, right? Becomes a poetic convention in medieval England, and everybody copies it. Lips as red as, right? Or skin as white as a lily, or whatever. You've read some of that medieval poetry. So you get these tropes, poetic tropes. So we have that in Sanskrit poetry as well. So snakes, and the ladies, they walk like elephants. Because actually, which doesn't sound like a compliment, but if you've seen an elephant, they're incredibly graceful, they sway. So if you tell a lady she walks like an elephant, they take it as a compliment. Don't slap him around the face. It's a compliment. Right now. So, right. We don't have to worry about Kubja. When he leaves Vrindavan, she just thinks he's gorgeous, and she tries to she immediately solicits him on the street. Says, oh, jewel amongst men, come to my house, let me serve you, let me massage you. But she's, obviously it's God, so she's very fortunate and blessed, and Krishna actually, in fact, does, just to please her. But she has some self-interest mixed in. So Rupa doesn't, doesn't reject it. It just says it's immature. Why is it immature? Because it's still self-interest. It's considered to be common amorousness. Why common? Because there's self-interest mixed in. Now, right, so that's one kind of bhakti. That's amorous bhakti. Now, relational bhakti is that type of rāgātmika bhakti, right? Spontaneous, no rules or regulations. It just, you have no control over it. It just takes over your every 100% of your being. But the other type, so the gopis are just one, and the others involves the identification of oneself, right? Because of Yogamaya, you really think of yourself as one of Govinda's relatives, like a father and so forth. Okay, so the Vrishni, along with the cowherders, the Vrishni dynasty, they are his dynastic friends, along with the cowherds, the gopas, are considered to be exemplary representatives, since their passion is predominantly free of any awareness of divine majesty. For this type of bhakti, rāgātmika, there can be no knowledge that Krishna is God. If there's knowledge that Krishna is God, it's not Rāgānugā, it becomes Vaidhi. So that love, only when there is no awareness of divine majesty. So Krishna in Dwarka, Krishna when he leaves Vraj, he becomes a big king. That's none of that. It's bhakti, but it's not rāgātmika. Because rāgātmika means there's no awareness of divine majesty. And why is there no awareness? Because of Yogamaya, and because that intensity doesn't know any bounds, doesn't know any formality, doesn't know any, remember, formality is a rule. Knowing God's majesty is kind of rule bound. Oh, he is an Ishvara, and he has Aishwarya. Aishwarya means Ishvara is the one who has Aishwarya. Ishvara is the one who has power, majesty, Aishwarya. So then all of a sudden you fall into a kind of a category of a sort of rule-bound relationship. Oh, okay, so now I should bow, now I should worship, now I should do namaha, namaha, namaha. None of that in rāgātmika. If there's any of that awareness of majesty, it's a different kind of bhakti, but it's not rāgātmika. Okay. Now, since the essential nature of both amorous bhakti and relational bhakti, these are two types of rāgātmika. The gopis are amorous, and relational means father, friend, etc. But both of them, the essential nature is love. It's just that love has different flavors: love of a beloved, love of a friend, love of a parent. So both of them are prema, which is the fourth chapter. Our last session will be on prema. They're vessels, ashrayas. Those who manifest this love are the eternally perfected ones of Vraj. Those in the Vraj Leela. Vraj Leela is the first 36 books of the Bhagavata Purana, my friends. Please read it. I have some copy. I don't have the whole thing scanned. I did translate the whole, 90 something chapters for Penguin Classic, but I have some chapters of these three bhavs: the friend, the parent, and the gopis. I just picked out the choice chapters, and I'll be quite happy to email to anybody who wants to at least get a taste and decide whether you want to, read more, but at least get a taste. All right. So they're the vessels. This sounds like Sufi. Sufis like to talk about the Sufi is the vessel of God's love. So they're the vessels, the ashraya. Ashraya actually means ashraya means okay, it's a vessel, but a ashraya, the reservoir. Yeah, I guess that's a vessel. They're the eternally perfected ones of Vraj. They're not discussed here in detail. They'll be discussed later in this book. That won't be part of our workshop. The actual, we're looking at bhakti. This is we're looking at bhakti here. We're looking at sadhana bhakti. Then the next chapter is bhava bhakti, and then prema. Bhava is the beginning of prema, and prema is the grand finale goal of love. And bhava is the intermediate state. And that will be we're on chapter 2. And there are four waves of this eastern quadrant. Remember, the whole book has 4 quadrants: southern, northern, western, eastern. Each of the quadrants, remember, it's the ocean of nectar of bhakti. So it's an ocean. So ocean has a quadrant, but divided up, and each quadrant has 4. I think some have more than 4 waves. The eastern quadrant has 4 waves. We're on the second wave, which is sadhana, and we will be proceeding to bhava, which is the beginning of love of God, in the third wave and the fourth wave prema, right? So he's going to talk about, but the Rāgātmikas, the ones who already have all of this, they'll be discussed in detail in other quadrants later on in the book. It's a huge book. Okay, so 670 pages, of course, half of it's Sanskrit, but it's a, it's a tome. The Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu of Rūpa Gosvāmi. This translation is by David Haberman, scholar at University of Iowa. He's also a Bhakta, actually, initiated, took Diksha. So he's an academic. If you like scholar practitioners, then he's your man. Then there's Bhanu Swami has a translation. You can get it on Amazon. Bhanu, Bhanu. And then Prabhupada has a version. Bhaktivedanta Swami, the founder of the Krishna. So those are the three I'm aware of that are easily available on Amazon. But this one's probably costs a bit. The Bhakti, this one here. Now, okay, where were we? Following so there were two divisions of Rāgātmika Bhakti. So if you follow it, so then Rāgānugā, remember, follows the Rāgātmikas. You already have some raga. It's not complete. You're not a Rāgātmika yourself. It's not 100% exploded and taken over everything in your life. But you're not doing it by rules and regulations anymore. You've attained something. You've attained some raga, and you want to deepen it. So you're going to mold it on the Rāgātmikas. So if the Rāgātmikas are divided in two, so Rāgānugā, which anuga means following raga, you're following it, you're chasing it, don't have it yet, but you have enough of it to follow it, to sort of want to develop it, right? Vaidhi, you may not have anything. Vaidhi Bhakti, you're just starting off. I mean, that's a wonderful place to be. Don't diss that. I'm a Vaidhi Bhakta. I'm not going to make pretensions of Rāgānugā, but occasionally Bhagavan gives us a little Rāgānugā, just to keep us so we don't complain too much. So Rāgānugā Bhakti is right, just as that Rāgātmika is two kinds, so Rāgānugā, which follows, it's two kinds, same. Rāgātmika is amorous and relational, so you're imitating amorous and imitating relational, quite logical. So it has the same two divisions, but in this case you're imitating it. And bad word, you're molding yourself on it, because imitation has negative connotations in the English language. Although not in Latin, like the imitation of Christ, that's not bad. Imitatio, what is it? Imitatio something or other. That's exactly what this is, actually. Very similar to this. What's that book called? Imitatio Deo or Imitatio? Somebody go on Wiki. Imitatio. Can we find that? That's actually an interesting, just somebody go online and put Imitatio something or other, which maybe was it Augustine, one of the great Catholic saints. You're actually imitating Christ. You want to have what Christ has, so you're imitating it. It's in the footnote. Which footnote? What footnote? All I see is Ananta. And someone talking about Michelle Obama's arms. All right. Well, we haven't found
122.
122 what? Sorry?
Footnote.
Oh, you mean I got to scroll down? Yeah, the imitation of Christ.
Imitatio of Christo.
The imitatio Christo. Who was that? Who wrote that?
Thomas à Kempis.
Thomas of what?
Thomas à Kempis.
A Kempis. Oh, okay. Never heard of him. All right then. So, right. So that's also into that. Now, who's eligible for Rāgānugā? Right now, we know what it is. Rāgānugā is that you might still do some of the practices of Vaidhi, but now you're doing it out of raga, not because you have to. And he'll say that later on. You have some raga, and you want to deepen it, and the way to deepen it is to what he calls imitate or mold it on Rāgātmika. So who is eligible for this now? Anyone who is desirous of attaining the bhav, the emotional state of love. Not bhav is not just, it's an emotional state, but I mean, colored by, my friends, can you just give me a minute? I got to throw a log on the fire. I have got the fire going because it's quite cold today, and I just forgot about it. It's going to go out. Give me a second. Remind me to do that in another 45 minutes. Otherwise, I'm going to be freezing. Okay. Anyone who is desirous of attaining the bhav of the residents of Vraj, right? Vraj, Vrindavan, same thing. Vrindavan is a little town. Vraj is the larger area. Who are situated exclusively in Rāgānugā bhakti. So, right, Yashoda, his mother, the Gopas, the Gopis. You have to read the story to understand what we're talking about here. If you've never read the Krishna stories, send me an email, please. And I will forward you some. And if loads of you write, then I will forward them to one of you, and then I'll request you to forward them to everybody else. Otherwise, I'll be there hitting the forward button all day. Right. I'm learning. You know, if you've got to keep on top of everything, you have to involve everybody in seva. Otherwise, it gets overwhelming. So, who's eligible? Anyone desires of attaining the bhav of the residents of Vraj who are situated exclusively in Rāgānugā bhakti. If you want that, you're eligible for Rāgānugā bhakti. If you want what they got, what they have. Now, what's the indication of the birth of this kind of desire? You can't pretend you have it. Be honest, be humble, do Vaidhi bhakti until it comes, my friends. I've seen too many people fake it, put it on a show, and their ego gets all caught up. Don't make a fool of, for God's sake. How many times have we got to make fools of ourselves in this life? To stop making fools of ourselves. It will be born. Just be patient. It will come. So the indication of the birth of this intense desire for those emotional states, whether it's maternal or friendship or love, is that upon hearing, how do you know that? Upon hearing of the sweetness of their various emotional states, the mind proceeds without regard for either scriptural instructions or logic. This is why it's not Vaidhi. You automatically, as soon as you read the stories, your mind just instantly you start to cry, you start to become attracted to it, and you don't care anymore about scriptural instructions or logic. People tell you, oh, this Krishna is all a big myth. You don't give a damn what people say. Your mind is attracted to Krishna. Or scriptural instructions. It's spontaneous. It doesn't mean you disobey scriptural instructions, but you're no longer dependent on them. The raga is stronger than any scriptural instructions. The gopis, when they heard the flute of Krishna, they turned their back on all scriptural injunctions. They left their husbands to be with a stranger in the forest, my friends. Think of the risk they took. Village India, you go to be with a paramour in the forest, they throw you out of the village, then what? Where are you going to go? Think of the risk they took. Where are you going to go? Even today, you're in rural Bihar, and you go to be with a man in the forest, they throw you out. Where are you going to go? You go to the next village. You know what they're going to say in the next village? Why are you wandering around all by yourself then? Then you're going to know immediately something happened. You're going to end up in, as I always say, in the red light district of Bombay. That's the risk and that's not a joke. That's awful. But that's what happens. No one's going to want anything to do with you. You're tainted. The gopis didn't even think. This is the greatness of the gopis. They didn't think, what will happen? They just immediately, they drop their babies. Can you imagine a mother that's nursing a baby, dropping the baby when they hear the call of God? That's what it meant for the gopis. They literally, it says they dropped their babies. And some who were nursing dropped their babies. I'm literally repeating what it says. That's why they completely disregard that. What kind of dharma is that? The dharma of the mother, if nothing else, is nurse the baby. They completely broke every single rule of dharma. That's Rāgānugā. That's Rāgātmikas. They're Rāgātmikas. So the Rāgānugā is following that, wants some of that, and you begin to experience some of this. So the mind proceeds without regard for scriptural instructions or logic. Now, somebody tries to tell you, oh, well, this Krishna story was 3,100 BCE, but, there was no civilization in India 3,100. There was an Indus Valley civilization, and this epic culture is 8th century of the Gita's data. You don't want to hear that anymore. You're like, all right, keep your dates. My mind is attracted to Krishna. You can stuff your date. You can take your dates and put them where the sun don't shine. I say that because I've had 4 decades of this in academia, but still. All right, so let's get serious. Okay. Okay, so that's how you know. When you hear the stories, the sweetness of the various, the mind proceeds without regard for either scriptural instructions or logic. But the one eligible for Vaidhi Bhakti, that's you and me, my friends, should rely on scriptural instructions and favorable reasoning. If you're Vaidhi Bhakti, don't be a fanatic. Study logic, study, use reason, constantly check, why am I doing this? Why do I believe this? Why, otherwise you become a fanatic. Fanatic, someone that doesn't want to engage reason. That we don't want that. So Rūpa is quite clear. Till that happens spontaneously, where you just can't help it, you just don't care what anybody says. Until then, you should rely on scriptural instructions, which are the 64 processes, and favorable reasoning. So you study the jñāna, the school of logicians, and their irrational defense of why there has to be a God. Rational defense of why the soul is distinct from any material substance or quality. So you should do all of that until one of these emotional states appears, because when it does, there's nothing you can do about it, my friends. Logic goes out the window, and you can take and the 64 principles. You might still do some of them, but you do it out of raga. The practitioner of Rāgānugā bhakti should dwell continually in Vraj, absorbed in its various stories. Remember, Vraj is where Krishna performed all his leelas. Leelas means the different episodes of his life. So Vraj, and Vraj is that area where he did that. It's about 64. Nowadays, I don't know who came up with the idea of 64. No, actually Rūpa and the Gosvāmis identified 64. They call it the Vraj Mandala. And that's as far as Krishna roamed with his calves and his friends and his pastimes and so forth. So he should dwell absorbed in its various stories. So, okay, this happened here, and then you go to another place, and this little temple, this is where Krishna did this. And that's just a way of keeping your mind absorbed in Krishna while you're in this body. So keeping the mind, so Vraj is favorable to that, because Vraj is nothing other than that. There's no reason for the town. It was built by Rūpa and his 6 colleagues. They built the modern day Vrindavan, probably one of the most thriving places, pilgrimage places in India today. It was built by Rūpa and the 6 Goswāmis. It was Caitanya, their guru, who went to Vrindavan and identified, it was just jungle, identified the places where the various pastimes of Leelas had taken place. And then the Goswāmis got, the Rajput kings to sponsor the huge temples that we now see. The 6 big, huge temples were built by the Krishna Bhakta Rajput Rajasthani kings of Jaipur and elsewhere. Udaipur, the Kshatriyas, and then the holy town developed around that to what it is today. So dwelling in Vraj, absorbed in its various stories, remembering Krishna and the intimate companions to whom he is most attracted, right? So I like the Gopas. I'm a Gopa Bhav. Well, others like the Gopis or the Shoda. So whatever you're attracted to. But don't confound it with your material body mind. That's a story for another day. One who is desirous of attaining one of the emotional states, you can't have them all. You'll be attracted to one. You can't mix them. You can't mix the love of a parent with the love of a gopi. That's incestuous, even in a mundane frame of reference. So you pick one, or you don't pick it. It just overwhelms your mind. Comes to you. One who is desirous of attaining one of the emotional states, that's bhav, of the residents of Vraj, the gopas, the gopis, the shoda, the cows. Might want to be a cow. I wouldn't mind being a monkey, actually. should perform services in a manner that imitates them with both the practitioner's body, sadhaka rupa, and the perfected body, siddha rupa. So this verse, I don't want to get into the controversy. There was a big controversy in the lineage after rupa. What does he mean by this? The practitioner body is your physical body. And the perfected body is the body that you want for all eternity to serve God with in the divine realm of Goloka, the Brahman realm that I was telling you about. So you want to be a Gopa. So in your mind, you envision yourself as a Gopa. You create that body in your mind. That's the Siddha Rupa body. Now, there was a controversy about, well, what does it mean that you do that in the Sadhaka Rupa? That's your physical body. Now, most of the tradition says, no, your sadhaka rupa, you renounce, you become a renunciate like rupa is. In your sadhaka rupa, you remain whatever it is. It's only in your mind that you're absorbing the personality and the emotional, you're cultivating the emotional state of that ragatmika. Remember the ragatmika, the role model devotee? You're doing that in your mental body. But there are some traditions that say you do it in both. And you see people even today in Vrindavan, the men, they're dressing in saris, and they're saying, oh, we're not just gopis in our mind, we're also going to be gopis in our physical body. They walk around in saris, and they're taking that verse in a very different way. So it's one of the controversies of the tradition. Are you anyone getting lost up there? I told you this is a new universe, isn't it? This isn't your Hari Om Satchidananda, right? Oh, Atman. We're had enough of that. This is a very different universe. Okay. All right. Now, so that controversy, you can look at the footnotes if you want to. Practices now, the Vedic practices like Shravana, listening, and Kirtana that would describe the Vedic Bhakti are also known by the wise. They're useful in Rāgānugā, but the Rāgānugā is not doing it because he has to do it because, okay, now I'm going to do Kirtan because it's purifying my mind. Okay, now it's 6 o'clock Kirtan, like in ashram right now. Okay, japa time. That's Vedic Bhakti. Ashram life is Vedic Bhakti. The Rāgānugā may still do some of those processes, but purely spontaneously, not because it's regulated. Right. Now, what's the imitation of Amaras Bhakti, the gopis? Imitation of Kama Anuga, right? Rāgānugā, Kama Anuga. Imitation of Amaras Bhakti. Do you have lots of questions? We should create a time for questions. But let's just go with it. Just totally absorb your mind in this and just dive into it. Just dive into the ocean of. Remember, this is the Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. It's an ocean of the nectar of the rasa, of the experience of Bhakti. So dive in. Remember, if you dive in and if this appeals to you, you'll be swimming around in this for all eternity. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to get it all now. Just dive in. And then keep swinging, keep reading, keep studying, keep practicing, keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Don't worry if you don't get it all. There you go. Ian's having a good old swim up there already. Good on you, mate. All right, now, imitation of Amaras Bhakti. Imitating the gopis is that special desire which imitates Amaras Bhakti. Okay, Rāgānugā imitating the gopis. We're talking about the gopis. He hasn't mentioned it. That's what it is. And it's of two types. You remember, Rupa's a scholar. He's an incredible bhakta. He's also a scholar. Scholars schematize. They analyze. That's what an intellectual does. You have to fit everything in. And if it doesn't fit in this category, you create another category or a subcategory. That's that's what scientists do. That's what philosophers do, right? You come up with ever-increasing categories that reflect the ever-increasing nuancing of something. The more you nuance it, the more you have to say, well, this is slightly different than that, and so we'll call this type A and we'll call that type B. So that's not his fault. That's his nature. He can't help it. Rupa's an intellectual, so he happens to be an amazing, the highest level bhakta, but he can't change the fact that he's an intellectual. So he's dividing it. So it's of two types. Desire for erotic enjoyment, sambhoga icha mai, sambhoga, bhoga, icha mai, made of the icha, the desire for sambhoga. You know bhoga from Patanjali, but not Patanjali and bhoga, right? What is prakriti? It's bhoga apavarga, just so you know the word. And desire to share in the emotion, two types. It's going to explain it. Tat tad bhava icha atmika. Its nature is the desire to share that bhava. What does this mean? Hold your horses. Right. The first one, desire for erotic enjoyment, is direct amorous involvement. Your desire is to please Krishna directly, physically, erotically, with your body, pleasing Krishna's body. Why not? God is the source of everything. Whatever is here, God has a form. The senses. He doesn't need senses. Why does he have senses? Just to provide variegatedness of experience. This is not impersonal moksha, my friends. Haven't we had that pounded into us throughout the text? Impersonal moksha, no senses, no variegatedness, no change, no qualities, no form, no substances. Nasty, not asti, till you're blue in the face. Not this. Eliminate, nirodha. Then what do you get? Atman, all right, take your Atman. Swarupa Vastanam. That's not what this is. I hope that's clear by now. So this is about forms, qualities, everything, but spirit, completely divine, completely spiritual. What does that mean? God is the object of everything, all of it. So why not offer your body to God then? To please God that way. And it's not that God needs anything, but God's seeing that your desire, Krishna's seeing the desires of the gopis to please him in that way, reciprocates with them in that way. That's what love is. So you reciprocate with your beloved in the way that your beloved seeks. There's no self-interest, either from the gopi side or from Krishna's side, for that matter. So those who are desirous, all right, so the goal of this desire for erotic, that means, what it says, is direct, conjugal. I mean, let's think of a nice word. I mean, sex sounds a little mundane. So we have to find some rather, a word that's, more literarily suitable for talking about this kind of relationship with God. So direct, he says, direct amorous involvement. The goal of desire, so that's the first type, right? Two types. Your actual contact, and desire. You don't want contact, you just want to share the emotions of those who have, of Radharani. You just want to experience the emotions that they have. So the goal of desire to share in their emotion is appreciation of the sweetness of the various emotions of the gopis of Raj. You just, you're not, your attraction, you just want to love Krishna in the way that you want to experience the emotions of love. You want to love Krishna by imitating. Remember, this is Rāgānugā. You're imitating the whole Rāgānugā. Whatever manner of imitation it is, it's imitating those who already have this. So you want to have the emotions that the gopis have. You don't necessarily want to have direct amorous contact with Krishna in a direct way. Okay, so those are the two types of Kāma-nuga, two types of amorous bhakti: direct, personal, and emotional. You just want to experience the emotions, or rather, you want to direct those emotions to Krishna. Those who are desirous of the amorous emotional state, which is the second one, emotional state, after looking at the sweetness of the beautiful image of Krishna, or after hearing of his various forms of love play, have these two ways as a means of realizing it. When they read about the stories of Krishna with the gopis, they can try to imitate it or aspire for it in these two ways, either directly or emotionally, but not directly. This is even the case for men. Men can also want to have this relationship with Krishna, as is stated in the Padma Purana. And now an example from the Padma. Previously, all the great sages living in the Dandaka forest, male renunciate sages, saw the enchanting Ram And they decided to enjoy his beautiful body. This is not anything to do with any notion of any of our mundane equivalents to this. It's not, it doesn't fit into our categories of whatever we might have, homosexuality or
things.
Pardon? So they saw all of the sages, they saw the Ram, and they just fell in love with his beautiful body. So they were all therefore, but they were renunciate celibate sages. So they were therefore born in Gokula. When Ram incarnated as Krishna, they were born in Gokula, is the same as Vraj. They were born as women, and attaining Hari there by means of passion, they were freed from the ocean of worldly suffering. So the point is, even men can have, you don't have to be in a woman's body to aspire for this kind of relationship with God, an amorous one, right? Either of the two types of amorous ones, you can be a man, and the Padma Purana gives the example. Okay, and then you get reborn, or you get born in the divine realm, or you go to the divine realm, or you may be reborn in this realm where Krishna is taking birth. There's a difference. You can be born where Krishna is taking birth, the next incarnation. Remember, there's an incarnation of Krishna every cosmic cycle, every yuga. Remember, there's cyclical creativity. So every yuga, the same incarnations return. So you can be born where Krishna is taking birth, and then after that, go to the divine realm, or you can go directly to the divine realm of Goloka in Brahman, in the Brahman effulgence. Within that, there are realms that are only accessible to bhaktas, not the gyanis, not the Chittavritti Nirodha folks. They attain the effulgence of Bhagavan. They merge into the effulgence. For those seeking a personal relationship, go to the personalist realms. Take your pick, my friends. So one who has, one who has intense longing for amorous enjoyment, but serves Krishna only by means of path of Vaidhi Bhakti, achieves the state of a queen of the Siddh. So the queen, when Krishna left Vrindavan, he went to Dwarka, in Gujarat today, and that he built his huge 16,000 palaces. And so those who want to have this sort of amorous, but they're not following the bhaktas of Vraj, so then they get to have an amorous relationship as a queen. But what's the difference? The queens of Dwarka know that Krishna's God. So their intimacy is intimate. They have amorous conjugal relationship, but it's tinged with Aishvarya, majesty, and therefore it does not have the intimacy of the relationships of the gopis who know nothing of that Krishna's God. There's no imposition on their love. If you know God's majesty, that's an imposition, that's a limitation, that's almost like a burden. That's like let's call it a limitation or a conditioning of your love. When you take away majesty, take away everything, you just adore God just because you don't know he's God. You just adore Krishna. You don't know he's God. You adore him because if you're a gopi, he's gorgeous. Because if you're a mother, because he needs your protection. If you're a buddy, because he's fun to hang out with it, and you're going to wrestle with him and play with him. No majesty. Majesty is a disruption, a disturbance. It's wonderful to be a queen of Dwarka. I'm not turning it down. I'll sign the contract, but let's be clear about the theological difference. So another Mahakurma Purana, the great souled sons of, oh gosh, we're spending a lot of time on this. Oh, we've only got one more page. I thought we might take the whole session on this. So we have until 3:09. Oh, we're almost there. Oh, look at that. Where are we? 3:09. Oh, we made it. So we have to decide whether or we could take some questions. We haven't had any chance for you to ask your questions. So the Mahakurma Purana, the great souled sons of Agni, achieved the state of women by means of ascetic practices, right? They were renunciate sadhus, male, celibate, brahmacharis, but they aspired for this amorous love of God. So then they attained Vasudeva, Krishna. But Vasudeva is the name of Krishna when he leaves Vrindavan. So in other words, they attain that one of these queens of Dwarka. That's why this verse is following this. The names reflect Krishna in different moods. When we want to talk about Vrindavan Krishna, we say Gopal, Gopinatha. But these other names, Madhusudana, they're power names. Aishwarya, they're God on high names. Difference. So Vasudev is a warrior prince, the son of Vasudeva. That's nothing to do with Braj. So therefore the Braj tradition, we're Gopala Bhaktas. For us it's Gopal, Lalaji. We don't even say Gopal, Lala. All right. So the great souled sons of Agni achieved the state of women by means of ascetic practice, and then they attained Vasudev. Next birth, the unborn, all-pervading Lord of the universe, notice, emphasizing majesty, as their husband. So they became queens of Dwarka. Now, how do you imitate relational bhakti? Okay, there are two types of bhakti. Remember, there's the Kama-nuga, that's the gopis, and then there's the others like the father, the friends, the mothers, they're relational. And remember, what is Rāgānugā? You're imitating. Again, a bad word. You're molding yourself. You've done your Vedi bhakti, and now you have spontaneous raga, but it's not, you don't know what to do with it. So you mold it, and it's still preliminary. So you mold it, and you can't help it. You become fascinated by one of the characters in the Vraj Leela, or a genre of character like the Gopas, all the Gopas, or the Gopis, not more than one. You'd be attracted to one of those. Or you're just fascinated by the parental leelas and the love of the mother and the mischief and the naughty little Krishna and the shoulder scold. You just love that. And you just want to, that's what you want. You want that bhav. So that's it. So the gopis are then, so he, for whatever reason, he's divided it into two, the gopis and then everybody else. I think he's done that because he wants to highlight the gopis as super excellent and their love is unparalleled. But imitational bhakti is declared by the sages, right? You're not making any stuff up. You got to. That's why he's always quoting the texts. To be that form of devotion, bhakti, that consists of meditating on a relationship with Krishna, such as fatherhood, motherhood, and ascribing that relationship to one's own self. You think of yourself as Krishna's guardian or parent or father figure, or of his friend, or of his, right? But the gopis are the other one. The one we just discussed. Okay, but the other types of relationship, or okay. This form of devotion is to be enacted by practitioners desirous of such emotional states, such as parental affection and friendship, by means of the emotions, actions, and postures of Nanda. Nanda is Krishna's father in Vraj, the king of Vraj. Subala, little friend, and other appropriate exemplary figures. So remember, Rāgānugā, modeled on Rāgatmika. So then Rāgānugā, you start to develop a spontaneous attraction doesn't come from, it's not connected with rules anymore. It's a spontaneous attraction to have a particular love of God. It arises in the mind, as we see in the next chapter. And you start to model it on your role models in Vraj Leela. There's a wonderful book on this if you're interested, by the same person that translated this. It's called Acting as a Way of Salvation. Instead of saying imitation, he calls it acting.
I posted a link, Acharya Ji, for that.
Okay. So he gives an example. It is stated in the scriptures. And does he give the verse, which scripture is? I'm curious about this. 134. No, he doesn't give a verse. But an old carpenter who lived in Kurupuri, no idea what that is, achieved perfection by following Narada's instruction, Narada the great guru, and worshipping an image of Krishna, the son of Nanda, as his own son. So he had a deity and he just spontaneously started to treat the deity as his son. He's reached the state of Rāgānugā. Spontaneous. Normally you don't need a deity, you put it on the altar and you're very formal, right? What would you do if you went to someone's house, you picked up their deity off the altar and started cuddling it? You're mad. Probably whack you with a stick. But that's Rāgānugā. It happens spontaneously. You pick up the deity and start embracing it. That's what he was doing. All right, we're almost done and we'll take some questions. Right. Why is that there? Get rid of that. I don't know how to get rid of whoops. Right. Therefore, it is said in the Narayana Vyuhastava, obeisance to those zealous ones. I don't know if that's a great word. It has slightly negative connotations in English. Zealous means a little bit too fanatically enthusiastic. So again, you've got to be careful about the words you pick, when you translate. David Haberman is great. I offer him my namaha. He's a great bhakta and a great scholar, but I can't help it occasionally thinking that's not probably the most prudent choice of words. Sukhrit Bratri Pitri Van Mitra, where are we? 308. Anyway. What is it? Pati Putra Sukhrit Bhatri Pitri Van Mitra Vadharin Ye Jayanti Sad Odyukta Sadod. I have to look at that later. Obeisance to those zealous ones who continually meditate on Hari as a husband, a son, a companion, a brother, a friend. These are some of the different relationships you can have, my friends, with God. You can consider God as your husband or lover, as your son, as your companion, as your brother, father, or a friend. And then Rāgānugā Bhakti is called Pushti Marg. He said the same at the end of last chapter. Remember the two different Krishna lineages that came out of the 16th century? So the Pushti Marg is the Vallabha. They have red sacred clay on their foreheads. And why do they call it that? This other community, not the Caitanya derived one, but Vallabha derived one. He says, well, they call it, some of them, meaning Vallabha, that's the footnote, since the sole cause of its attainment is the grace of Krishna. Pushti means grace. So he's saying these other tradition, they call it grace, the marga, the path, like Ananda Marga, the path of grace. Why? Because all of this, you can only get it by the grace of God. Love is a gift, my friends. When we do our Vedi Bhakti, what are we trying to? It's not like Patanjali. When you do it, and you can attain the goal by following up Patanjali. The Kriya Yoga, Ashtanga, you get it. When bhaktas do Vedi Bhakti, it's not that you attain the goal that way. You're trying to attract the attention of Krishna with your little Vedi practices, because raga, and even just the beginning of raga, it's all a gift. It's all a gift. It's all a gift of God. Because eventually God gets captured by love. So he's only going to give, right? You're only going to allow yourself to be captured by someone you trust and loves you unconditionally and will never, right? So God that's just us, what to speak of God. So there God becomes he's totally controlled by the gopis' love. That's repeated all over the 10th book of the Bhagavatam. So it's given, it's bestowed. Love is bestowed, it's not inherent. It's not in the mind. The only thing in the mind are memories of prakritic things. Love of God comes from beyond. It's a divine. It's a gift. It's a gift from beyond, from God himself. Only thing in the mind is what comes in through the senses, and we call them memories, imprints. Do we have any questions, my friends? We have 15 minutes, and it makes no point. We have 2 more chapters, and they're very short. And this one was a little bit harder work because we had to put down a lot of infrastructure to get to really understand it. So we've got Bhava Bhakti, which is just, like 10 pages, and Prema Bhakti, which the last chapter, which is just 3 or 4 pages. Not even, it's tiny. Prema Bhakti is 2 pages. All right. So we'll have 2 more sessions, I'm sure. Perhaps we'll do it all next Friday, but I'm not going to rush it because this is what we do with our minds. We absorb them in. This is one of the 64 practices. Studying the Bhagavatam. Remember the last 5, the most important. Let's just make sure we remember that. What we're doing now, my friends, is sadhana bhakti, right? Where are we? 63. Right? The most important, the last 5 are the most important. The first are just preliminary, all that guru stuff. Right. Here. 61. was it 60, 61, 62, 63, 60? So it starts the last 5, the most important. Serving the feet of the divine image. That's getting your own deity and starting to worship it. It can be a picture. You lose nothing. Just create a sacred space in your home. It can be a shelf. It can be a little table with a nice piece of silk on it. Whatever you be creative, whatever you think is beautiful, you give that to your Bhagavan. Create a sacred space and begin a little puja, the glass of water. How high is that? Look, you got a bookshelf behind you. Just clear out one of the shelves. And so there we have it.
That's actually my altar.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. I beg your pardon. So, okay, so let's just remind ourselves of the last 5. Puja, number 61. Enjoying the meanings of the Bhagavata Purana. That's what we're doing. We're reading the commentaries. Rupa's a commentator he's an exegete, a theologian, unpacking for us the sort of hidden flavors, or he's enriching the teachings of the Bhagavatam. That's what we're doing. The meanings of the Bhagavata Purana, 61, and then 62, associating with the devotees of Bhagavan. We're also doing that because there's bhaktas amongst us. So this is association. That's 62. Singing the names of Lord, that's kirtan. And finally, 64, living in Vrindavan. Of course, not all of us can do that, right? And then he says here, the last 5 practices: puja, Bhagavata, living in Vrindavan, kirtan, and what was the other one?
Associate with devotees.
Associating with bhaktas. Have such extraordinary and incomprehensible power beyond reason, that absolute faith in them is unusual. But even a small connection with them, my friends, can accomplish the production of bhava. That's the next chapter, this beginning of love, real actual love. That'll be the 3rd wave that when we meet next Friday. Okay, so what did we do today? We started, today we looked at the Rāgānugā. We understood that Rāgānugā imitates the Rāgātmika, right? And the Rāgātmikas of Vraj. So then he said, there's other kinds of Rāgātmikas that are also absorbed in Krishna, but we're not interested in them. Some of them are demons. And he says, but even they attain, they can't, because they have no bhakti, meaning they don't want a personal relationship with Bhagavan. You can't force it on them. So they don't get that, but they can merge into Brahman. They can merge into the effulgence of God. This whole business of becoming God, they can attain that. Or, that you're one with Brahman, no names, no qualities, no form, all of that. That state is there. No one's denying that. That's a bona fide, legitimate, transcendental attainment, a type of moksha one can attain if that's what one seeks. And that's the goal of a number of jñāna traditions. Some of them merge into the body of Christ, of Krishna. But that sounds wonderful, but you're still deprived of a relationship. If you merge into the body of God, then you deprive yourself of that relationship with God. Bhaktas want relationship with the divine other. They don't want to become God. So we looked at that. So the Rāgātmikas, we know who they are. They're the actual characters in the 10th book, the Vraj, the mothers and the Gopas and the Gopis. Then he talked about this Rāgātmika has the amorous 2 types. Okay, the Gopis, they exhibited by the Gopis, and the relational type. Whoops, don't know what happened there. Relations means other types of relations, non-Gopis. So he just singles out the Gopis just because they're super special. He didn't need to do that, but he did. Men can also then aspire for that feminine relationship with God as females, and likewise females can aspire for a male relationship with Krishna. They can be Gopas or father figures and so on, anything you want. And so Rāgānugā then is that you're beginning to have raga. It's not bound by rules. It's beginning to have this love. It's spontaneous. You can't do anything about it. It's irresistible. It starts to, it's not, hasn't completely overcome your entire being, because then it would be ragatmika, but you become fascinated with those who have it. And who are they? Where do you access that? From the stories of the Bhagavatam. That's revelation. You get that from the scripture, like anything else. You get it from revelation. Any access to God can only be revealed. That's why we have scriptures in the world. Christians are exactly the same thing, right? Jesus reveals the kingdom of God. Prophet Muhammad reveals, the revelations of Quran. So these are revealed. What are these relationships? It looks like they're revealed in the Krishna tradition in the 10th book of the Bhagavatam. And so therefore those personalities there serve as the paradigmatic, the role models. And you just spontaneously become attracted to them. Then you Rāgānugā, you follow them, you mold your life. And then eventually that can get to when there are renunciates in Vrindavan, they model their whole day on the activities of the residents of Braj, even today in Vrindavan. So they model their whole day. Okay, Krishna gets up now, and they imagine that you can call it imagination, but it's divine. You're divinely creating your spiritual body. It's just a mental practice. Everything's a mental practice. What do you think Chitta-vritti Nirodha is? What do you think mundane reality is? You imagine you can find happiness out there in the world. You imagine your desires. It's all imagination. What does imagination mean? Mental construct. So in this case, you're mentally, Patanjali just wants to stop all mental construct, but even that proposal is a mental construct. Until you've done it, it's a mental construct. Somebody says Chitta-vritti Nirodha, then until you've actually experienced it, it's a mental construct. So everything's a mental construct. It all depends what constructions you want to make with your mind, or what do you want to do with your mind, my friends? This mind that we have, what do? We have a life. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we do know we have a mind. Like Descartes said, cogito ergo sum. We know we have a mind. What do we do with it? Here in the Krishna tradition, this is what we do with it. And now we have some understanding of Vaidhi, develops into Rāgānugā, and then next week we will look at the actual states of love of God. What does that look like? So any questions? How's Mary Jane? Hi.
Jennifer has a question.
Okay. Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Professor. I've been studying with you for a while, and I want to thank you for helping me understand that time is, or lifespan is only relative. About 25 years of study of Patanjali has brought me to this place with you, where I'm have had since the very beginning the questions about Chitta-vritti Nirodha, particularly because I was a mother of a young daughter at the time, a child, and I couldn't see separation there, or what I think you referred to in this sessions as drawing inward, away from, and I understood householder, but so thank you for helping me understand that I don't feel like any of that was wasted, but it brought me to now. And you've helped me understand that the teachings of Patanjali in a new way. But my question is about what you said today. Be patient, it will come. But I feel like earlier, I also heard you say in previous sessions and the last 2 years of studies with you, that one can choose one's Ishtadevata. So can you help me understand that, between choice and waiting for that revelation?
That's a really good question. I would say it manifests I mean, of course, you have the choice. It looks like you have a choice because you're thinking, okay, I'm attracted to this and not that. It might seem that that there's a choice, and so it might be, you might phrase it that way, and that's what Ishta Devata means. Ishta means chosen. Ishta means the desired one, but it seems to me it's not like that at all. Even though we can use that language and it's not wrong or anything like that, it's Ishvara comes. And the same way as the bhav is bestowed and the form manifests. So really we have to, when Ishvara manifests, we think, okay, I choose that. But really, I think that's maybe conventionally phrased that way. But it seems to me Ishvara manifests and he captures our minds. And we choose him. I mean, we're always free will, but when Ishvara manifests, I don't know how one can turn one's back on that. I suppose one can. I suppose we do all the time. We have our little fall downs, we have our little detours, we have our little, avidya moments and our klishta moments. So in those moments, right, we are choosing to, forget Bhagavan for an hour or a day or a week or whatever it is. So, the choice is always there. But in terms of, I think it's Ishvara that manifests, and just open up our hearts and beg the divine, right? Maybe we just frame it in the beginning, we just frame it very vaguely, the divine, the absolute, right? These are very vague, kind of generic, non-specific terms, and then Ishvara will manifest. If we want that personal relationship, we want God, personal relationship, then we will find, I believe, or certainly was the case with me, I can't speak for everybody, but it seems to me the texts support this, then we will find that Ishvara will manifest in a form into our lives. So it seems to me it's grace. Even that first step is grace. Finding one's Ishta Devata, that's also grace.
Now, obviously, I have more reading to do, but I believe you also said in these one of these sessions about one can read the stories of the lives of, for example, in Christianity, the saints, and the experience of that awe, that moment. Or moments, but perhaps one special moment of clarity. You shared with us that you were among devotees and you said, I want that. I want to feel I want that experience of what they're having.
Yeah.
And so I feel drawn to go back to India in a new way.
Yeah. I remember sitting on a bus. I mean, the devotee thing was more like the Rāgānugā. Although we wouldn't use the word that way at all. No, I'm stealing that word. I just saw the bhaktas and I thought, I want that. And I molded myself into there, even though I didn't fully, I wasn't theologically that, it wasn't the theology initially attracting me. But I do remember sitting on a bus, a funky old, back 70s, funky old Indian bus coming down from Dharamsala, and thinking I was a Buddhist, and praying intensely to that nondescript, guy up there, whatever it is, whatever you are, intensely. And then within a week, I was in Vrindavan. Never heard of Vrindavan, knew nothing about Krishna, nothing. I was in Vrindavan, and I stayed there for 5 years. So that was my experience, and I don't want to project that on everybody else, but it seems supported by the text as well, that kind of thing. So we open up our hearts, and Ishvara will, if we're really deeply, desperately sincere, like the baby kitten, like the baby monkey, and desperately sincere, then Ishvara will manifest in the form. It might come through Rupa's going to say in the next chapter, it can come from, but we'll get to it next week. It can come from a bhakta, can inspire us, as was the case with me. I was inspired by bhaktas. It can come directly from Krishna, or it can be the product of Vaidhi Bhakti. And that's normally often how it is. The product of Vaidhi Bhakti, mind becomes pure. And then that raga manifests. That raga, it seems to me, and I'm sure Rupa will confirm this, is a gift of God. When he sees us doing that, those 64 practices, or whatever we do out of those, half a dozen of them, when he sees that we do that sincerely and humbly, then Bhagavan gives us a taste. That's a gift. That's a gift of God. Even the preliminary raga is a gift of God. It's all a gift of God in bhakti.
Could one come to us and then could it not be the real one or the actual one we would know over time? There might be another revelation at a later time, as if, oh, that one didn't, it fit for a while, but it didn't quite, and that would indicate that it wasn't.
To me, that would indicate that our surrender was not pure. That there were some desires, some conditions there, and therefore some, there was some kleshas in our own minds, and therefore we didn't have clarity, and therefore But if it's really, 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 really pure, I think you will then God in a pure form that will capture your heart and become your eternal Ishta Devata will manifest. That's how I would see it. Any other questions, my friends? Lakshmi, are you with us this evening?
Yes, he's here. Yes.
I'm here.
Lakshmi ji, how do we get this raga, Lakshmi? Where are you?
Just.
Do you think if we surrender our hearts to kirtan, then Bhagavan will bless us with, where are you? There you are. Will bless us with the little raga. Is there any possibility of that, do you think?
Well, that was the mercy of Caitanya Mahāprabhu, to give anyone and everyone the opportunity. The opportunity, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila, by first and foremost the names, chanting these names. And that's one of the kirtans I chose this evening, was Caitanya Mahaprabhu's favorite kirtan, one of his favorite kirtans. Just meditation on the name, because Nama Chintamani Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, the name on the absolute platform, on this divine platform, the name is the same as the personality. It's not different like we have here in the mundane world. Water, the sound, and the substance are different. But on the absolute platform, the sound and that which the sound is naming are the same. So yes, that's how we attract the attention of the divine, of the supreme, by chanting. Everyone likes the sound of their own name. So Krishna's no different. He loves to hear his devotees chant his name with an open and full heart.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lakshmi. And this is one of the 64 processes. And before we leave, can we see the picture behind you? Because we were talking about we were reading the Bhaktirasāmṛtasindhu and Rāgānugā, and Rūpa makes a point of distinguishing the Rāgānugā, the Rāgatmika of Kama, because Kama Rūpa, the gopis, from all the other sambandhas. And here we see it, a beautiful, just the gopis are just adoring, and there's Radharani, there's no jealousy, there's none of that. And remember, there were two types of amorous. There's actual enjoyment of Krishna, giving Krishna pleasure through actual contact of your bodies, and then there is just simply wanting the emotions. And you see the gopis standing around, their manjari bhav. Their bhav is the emotions, not necessarily the physical contact. So there's no envy, none of that in the divine realm. But we'll talk more about that next week. Lakshmi, thank you so much again. I hope you don't mind us appreciating your painting and connecting it with what we just read.
Oh, not at all.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to have you.
Thank you for, as always, the invitation to be part of this wonderful series that you're giving on bhakti. It's truly enlivening for me to see so many people interested in the esoteric text of Rūpa Gosvāmi. It's amazing. Who would know? It was the 16th century that people of all walks of life, from all cultures, from all ethnic groups, everywhere, would have interest in the sacred texts that were written by Rūpa Gosvāmi and Sanatana Gosvāmi, Jiva Gosvāmi. It's absolutely amazing. It's amazing that this has happened in this particular way, and that is the potency of bhakti. It's not a religion. it's of the heart. It's not someone who comes from this particular tradition, Indian tradition or whatever, but it's from the heart. A quick little story that just to underscore that point. There was a friend of mine who traveled throughout South America. I don't know if I told this story. If I did, stop me. And he wanted to see if there was anyone that was so isolated they hadn't heard of chanting, kirtan. And he wanted to give those people an opportunity, because sometimes people ask, well, what if you're born in a culture where you don't have this opportunity to hear chanting? Then are you lost? And the answer to this question, I think, is in this story. He was in South America. He was in South America and traveling in the Amazon up the Andes, and he felt like, those villages up there, they were very, very isolated, a lot of native tribes. And he decided to go up that path, and he did. To make a long story short, he came into one little village, and the natives there, they were half dressed or not dressed at all, and he thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity. They would not have any hope of being able to hear kirtan. And so he walked into the village, and he heard a very familiar sound as he was walking into the village, and it was they were kartals, and he kept walking through the village, and he came upon this one hut, and he walked into the hut, and there were a bunch of young people sitting there, natives of the tribe, and they were actually doing kirtan. What had happened was the leader of that little group there was the son of the chief, and the chief recognized that in the course of time, modernity was going to catch up with them, so he sent his son to a university, I think it was in Lima, Peru, and there he met devotees who were chanting, and he brought it back to his village. So here we have in the Andes, a village, way up in the mountains, and they're doing kirtan. So it's not a matter of do you have an opportunity or not. It's a matter of the heart. If the heart calls out, then there's a response. So that's my little story. So this chant I'm going to do this evening is called Hari Haraye Namaha. And Caitanya Mahāprabhu, when he was doing kirtan in the streets of Puri, Jagannath Puri, he would oftentimes chant this. And they're just simply the names of Krishna. And they would chant congregationally with various instruments like mridanga and kartal and other instruments. And they would sing this song, and everyone would become immersed in these names of Krishna. So I thought one of the first songs I actually learned in 1973 when I traveled with the very famous Kirtaniya Vishnu Gosvāmī was this song. This was one of his favorite songs also. So I will chant Hari Haraye Namaha, and they're just several names of Krishna describing his qualities, his beauty, his form, his pastimes. Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinato Madana Mohan Giridhari Gopinato Madana Mohan Hari Hare Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Hari Hari Hare Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinato Madana Mohan Giridhari Gopinato Madana Mohan Hari Hare Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Yadavaya Madhavaya Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Hari Hare Namaha. Hari Hare Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan. Hari Haraye Namaha. Hari Haraye Namaha. Krishna He Krishna He Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Yadavaya Madhavaya Yadavaya Madhavaya Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshava 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 Namaha. Hare Namaha. Hari Hare Namaha. Yadava Madhava Keshava Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Shri Madhusudana Shri Madhusudana. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana. Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana. Giridhari Gopinata Madana Mohan Hari Hare Namo Hari Hare Namo Hari Yadavayo Madhavayo Keshavayo Namaha Yadavayo Madhavayo Keshavayo Namaha Yadavayo Madhavayo Keshavayo Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Hari Hare Namaha Giridhari Gopinata Giridhari Gopinata Madana Mohan Madana Mohan Madana Mohan Hari Hare Namo Hari Hare Namo Radhe Radhe Shyam.
Radhe Shyam, Lakshmi ji, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Soul stirring as always. Thank you so much, and we hope you'll join us again next week. Same time, same place.
Same time, same station.
Same station. Thank you, everybody. Good night, Jai Sri Radhe. And
Jai Sri Radhe Shyam. Radhe Shyam.
Yeah.